I know.
Like that kind of oomph.
Viking oomph. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode with To Die For Games. I'm Mandi, also known as the Board Gaming Pinup Girl.
And I'm Caryl, also known as Caryl Has No Tan.
Getting that name, I'm sorry. Gets me every time. And I'm not feeling particularly pinup-y today, but this is like rainy, drowned pinup.
And because it's raining, there's also still no tan.
There you go. See? So it works. So today we are going to do gameplay overview and review of Vikings Gone Wild. So this will be something fun, I think. But before we get to all that good stuff, let's talk about some business. So down below, we're going to have timestamps if you want to get to a specific spot that you just have to get there. And if you have comments or questions, you can leave those down below as well. So I think we're ready. What do you think?
Let's get to it.
All right.
Buy buildings, grow your army, and attack other players to prove to the Norse gods who is the best in this Viking-themed deck-building game.
So now we're going to take a look at the components for Vikings Gone Wild. First, let's take a look at this side of the board here. So here we have the player mat. We have the first player token, Thor's hammer. We have player aids, which are handy to let us know what's going on per round, in addition to how attack and defense works. We have here our starting player decks, and you'll notice that there are various cards in here, beer cards, we have gold cards, and some attack cards. There are several choices, but I've chosen to be Thor, so we're going to take that. That's here. We also have the mission cards, and we have two of those here, but the deck is here, and they have that great blue back. Then we have building cards. You'll notice we start with some here, but there are some building cards on the board. Odin's Path cards. We have the attack and defense cards. In addition to that, we also have the Divine Favor cards. We have the endgame score cards, and you'll notice the board here, and we have a really fun attack animal here we'll talk about. We also have beer and gold in actual physical supplies, and then we also have the attack and building tokens as well. And I'll even give you a little close-up too of the beer and gold. It's kind of fun. So now we're going to take a look at the setup. So we've kind of partially set it up a bit, but you can take a look and see, and I'll go through it step by step. So here we have the player boards. This game plays 2 to 4, so right now I'm just showing you one player setup. So the first player marker will start with the hammer, as we had discussed before. Each player will receive a player aid to help them throughout the game. Next, you're going to place 2 mission cards on here. You'll notice that they are of a 1 value. So in the beginning of the game, you'll notice that it's only 1, and as it progresses, we will get down to 2 and 3 point missions. Next, we take the player decks, and as I said, they're comprised of actually 6 beer, 2 gold, and 2 attack cards. Okay, so those are 10 in total that start the deck. Additionally, you'll have a town hall. Actually, you'll have 3, but we're going to start with 1, which allows you to have a max of 3 buildings. That starts in the game. The mission cards are placed to the side of the board, but in reach of all players, as with the tokens, the beer, and the gold. On the board, we set up Odin's Path by placing all the cards out, and you'll see there's a spot marked for each of where those cards go. This will be for the discard pile. Then we take the attack cards and the defense cards and lay those out. Then we have the Odin's Favor cards, which are on display. 2 are on display, and then the deck is beside it. We have all the building cards set up. Here we have the end of game scorecards, and they have a slightly different back than the other cards, so you'll know they're red. All the other ones generally tend to have the same back. And then you want to place your score token, which basically matches the large one on your mat, just down here on the bottom of the board. So now we're ready to take a look at how to play Vikings Gone Wild. So now this is just an overview, but it gives you an idea of some of the actions that you can do on your turn. So first things first, normally you would not start with production because in the first round we have no buildings to produce. But for the sake of argument and just to show how that works, we're going to show you how it works for production. So as an example, if I had these buildings in plain production, I would actually decide now to produce gold, and I would do that by taking one of the gold bars from the supply and placing it on the gold factory or beer factory, whatever would produce in that round. So that's what would happen during the production phase. During the draw phase, you would take your deck and you would give yourself 5 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If a player had completed a mission from the previous round, so let's say you had 1 missing, this would be the time that you would draw another one, starting with the first player. Now we're into player phase. So this in turn order, starting with the first player, we're going to take a look at our cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. So I got a little mishmash here. So I have 2 attack cards, 2 gold cards, and a beer card. So these are my currency. These are my attack cards. So maybe let's start with the attack cards. So there are a couple ways that attack cards can work. So first, I can actually decide to attack Draco on the board. If I do that, I would say, hey, I'm attacking Draco. How does an attack work? In this case, he has a shield level or defense of 1, and the attack is 1. So as long as it is equal to or greater, I would be successful in this case. So if I decided to attack Draco, I have a choice of either choosing beer or gold from the supply on my successful attack. Now keep in mind with this, you can only do it once per turn. So if I do end up doing that, I may not be able to use this if I don't have a building to attack. If a player decided to, we'll just use mine as an example, attack another player's building. So in this case, let's say this was being attacked here. The shield level is 1, okay? So in this case, the player would need to have this or greater than. It's totally up to them. So I could decide to say, hey, I'm gonna play 2 attacks and I'm gonna attack this building. So we'll pretend this is another player's building and they were attacking. They have 2 attack. If the player could not defend this attack, the player would be successful. This would show that they've been attacked that round, okay? And that would actually give them a point on the point track. If they had attacked multiple buildings, they would get more points. And if they attacked a building that had a symbol like this, for example, so this one here allows you to loot gold from this container. So if a player is successful, so 3 or higher, and it's not being defended, they would be able to steal a gold bar from this player's container. There are others that will give you points in addition to the attack. So for example, if they were successful here, this would give the player that's attacking +2 in addition to the point for attacking, so for a total of 3. It's beneficial to attack many because it gives you more points. Once that player's been attacked, they cannot be attacked any further this round, and they would put that token there to show that. Now on the contrary, if this building was defended, so if a player had a card in their hand that was able to defend it, so for example, someone goes, hi, attack this building, and someone's like, wait now, I'm going to defend it, and they've defended it completely, they will now score as well. So this person has been rebuffed, who was doing the attack, and the player who was defended would get points. If it was a total defense, meaning they completely defended against the attack, and a unit card was rebuffed, or a hero card was rebuffed, they would get a point for each one of these cards that was used on the score track. Next action that you can take, that would be beneficial, is to buy buildings. So in this case, I have 2 gold and a beer. So it's not a lot happening here, but I think I could definitely buy a couple buildings. So I started the game with these just to show you an example. So I'm already at 2. This shows you that with my town hall, I can only have a max of 3 buildings, not including this one. If I want more, I will have to upgrade to the next building. So in this case, I'm like, oh, I definitely want to grab another building. I have 2 gold. I could then decide to purchase this building for 2 gold. How do I know it's 2? In the corner of the card, you'll see there's a 2 with a gold box around it, which shows it's gold. If I decided to purchase a card that had brown around it, I would know it has to be purchased with beer. Now, this can be done either with the cards or with the actual supplies that you have. And I could also, if I decided I did not want to purchase a building, and I did not want to purchase defense or attack cards, I could decide to purchase cards from Odin's Path. So if I decide to do that, I can say, what's available? So I can choose any of the cards that are visible, And then I would take this and it would go into my discard. When a card is purchased from Odin's Paths, the card deck moves down and a new one is drawn. Again, remember, the cost is the same as all other cards and is in the top left corner. Once your cards have been used, you want to place them aside because at the end of the round they will be discarded. Something else to note, on the player board down at the bottom here, when you reach certain points of the player board, so here specifically, you receive Divine Favor tokens. Divine Favor cards. So that happens at 5, 12, 20, and that's the ones with the little symbol on the board. So you can choose from the 2 that are available, or you can flip this one and reveal it and decide from these cards. Once you've made that decision, I can say, oh, you know what, I'm actually going to take Thor in this case, which is one of my favorites, 6 attack, can't go wrong, goes into your discard, and then the card that you looked at earlier and was revealed actually will come down and fill that back up. Keep in mind this does happen at every kind of point, so at the 5, 12, and 20 points. So you can get some really great cards there. Mentioned this earlier, if you have missions, you're able to complete them. So in this case, if I was to buy either an attack card, these are my 2 missions that I have available, or I can spend at least 3 during a turn, then I'll be able to complete one of these. So if that happened, I would take this card and I would turn it over here to show that it was completed, and I would get a point or whatever point value was on the bottom of that card. Bearing in mind, I can only complete one of these per round or per turn. And then this will fill back up to 2, but we'll talk about when that happens. Something else of note that I forgot to mention, if you have a building and you decide to do a building or build or construct a building, remember to put the attack tokens, which become a build token, to place those on the building. This indicates that you cannot use that building this round, nor can a player attack you. So those are important to remember. Same thing with attack. Cannot be attacking players constantly. Once that player's been attacked, that's it for their turn. And those would be placed in front of them. Once you've completed your turn and everyone's had their chance in the player phase, then the round is over for that portion, which is the player phase, and we move on to storage. So anything that was on a building that hadn't been used is now moved over to the storage container. And this could either be the gold or it could be the beer. End of round, you want to make sure that any cards that you have that are not being carried over, because in order to do that, you would need one of these 2 buildings, which allows you to keep an unused card, which does count towards your hand limit. But your next one will also allow you to draw an extra card. These are great together. But any card that you're not hanging on to because you don't have the building will go into your now discard pile. You will also drop off a card in Odin's Path, slide them over, and refresh. Then the first player token moves to the next player in clockwise order. And we start from the beginning with production phase, where if you have buildings that produce, they would produce. And then we're back to the drawing phase. Now, something of note here, if you had completed a mission here, this would be the time that you would draw another mission card. Again, starting with the first player and going around in clockwise order. And then you would draw back up to your 5 cards and start all over. The game ends when, if it's a 3 to 4 player game, you finish at 30. If it's a 2-player game, if you finish at 40. The game will end when someone either hits one of these points or passes it. You finish that round. Then you want to take a look at your endgame scoring cards one by one and see who acquires the points for each card. Keep in mind, if there are ties, this number is split amongst the players. Once you've calculated all those points, whoever has the most points wins the game. So now we're ready to give our review for Vikings Gone Wild. What did you think, Caryl?
I like the art. I have to be careful with what I have to say because it's not that it's a bad game.
Okay.
I like the art. It's a deck builder, first of all. So it's a formula we see so many times in so many other games, and my problem with it is that there are other deck builders out there. Like we have Legendary Marvel, Firefly, Encounters. We also have the Harry Potter deck building game, Xenoshift. So many other games that use the deck building formula. And for it to draw me in, it needs to bring something new or something that's, like a twist to it or something.
Right.
With a name like Vikings Gone Wild, I expected something a little bit different.
Like more wild?
Yeah, more wild, more attacking, more consequences, just more like,
So, yeah. The name, I gotta jump in here. The name, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't love the name, but then someone told me that it was, I guess it's a video game.
Yes.
I had no idea. So I was like, okay, but as soon as I heard the name, it didn't appeal to me. But then when I saw the game, exactly what you were saying, like the art, I really loved the art, like loved it. I thought the colors were great. They photographed really well. The gameplay, I don't dislike it. So I'm kind of in the same camp as you. I don't dislike it. I'm not a fan of deck builders, as people know, but I have seen some come out, like, Clank, which was really different than the deck builder, but like the dungeon crawl kind of thing happening. In this game, I felt like it was a deck builder with like little resources, but I felt like it wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So like with the attacking, and I don't know, maybe I'm just an aggressive player. Like you can attack, but then it was like, that's okay. That building would still be okay for next round. So I don't know if they just wanted to make it more family friendly in that regard, but maybe I'm just used to games where like you destroy it and then that person has to rebuild it, but that doesn't happen here.
Exactly. With Vikings, I'm expecting things to get destroyed. Like I'm going in with a lot of assumptions here, but if I'm going to be a Viking and a deck builder and I can attack things, that card better be destroyed and you have to rebuild it again. Looting is not enough. That's being too nice in my opinion. I have to go in there and burn things down and find and it gets satisfaction from that. That's exactly what I was expecting. But I also don't want to be unfair to it either. It's just that if you were to take that approach to it, that would have been more enjoyable for me. But without it, it feels like a regular deck builder and doesn't bring enough new to the table for it to hold itself above, say, star rounds or hero rounds, for example.
Right. I feel like it takes a long time to kind of ramp up. So, as you know, like I was teaching it at one of the events we had, and I just found I think we played 3-player games was the norm, and I felt it took a long time for players to kind of organize themselves. And these are players who are used to playing deck builders, and I feel like it took a long time for them to build and get the points, to the end of the game. Like it does escalate when it gets to a certain point, but I felt it took a long time to get there. So I don't know if it was just the players that I was playing with, or that's just how the gameplay is, but I did find that it was a bit lengthy in that regard.
For sure. And I feel like the gameplay itself, it doesn't even have to rely on you having too huge of a village or too many buildings. Once you kind of get like a sweet spot, you can just kind of like focus on getting, things that attack, the things that get you those points, right?
Right.
And yeah, it's okay.
I do feel like the setup is a lot for what it is. And so that's why I'm like, yeah, I guess you can play it as a family game, but it is a deck builder. So if someone hasn't played a deck builder, you really are going to have to explain how a deck builder works. There's a bit of explanation. You can't just dive in and play. Like there is a little bit of explanation that's required. So yeah, I think you play with your family, but the first session I think is going to take some time.
Absolutely. And if it's going to be someone's first deck builder, I'd rather bring them something that's a little bit more familiar with a skin that they're familiar with. Like if I brought them Firefly or Harry Potter, then that's a lot easier for them to get into because they recognize the characters, they recognize the universe. But with this one, unless you played the video game, it's not really doing much.
So what would you say this game's comparable to?
Because it does have that competitive element, you're trying to destroy things. I suppose it's a little bit like, probably Star Realms might be the closest thing. Mm-hmm. But then it's not like you have a health where you're running out of time. You're kind of just making your way up to victory points.
Right.
Yeah, it's comparable to so many deck builders because there's so many similar elements, but it's trying to bring its own thing and just kind of falls short for me.
So basically, if there's a deck building element in a game, it's the same.
Pretty much for me. Like,
okay.
It's going to have to do something like Clank, where it introduces the board, for example, for it to, be that different for me.
Yeah, so like this one has a board. It has some interactive elements, like with the Odin's Path cards at the top, and it has the, I forget the name, but the monster that's on the board. that you can attack to get resources. But other than that, you're right. It's not really as interactive a game as games like Clank, who use the deck building capability. So overall, for me, it's not a bad game. It's not a bad game. For me, this is a game, it's fine. And, you know, I definitely showed it to a lot of people who really enjoy it, but I think that it just needs that like extra oomph to amp it up a little bit. Could you play it with your kids? For sure. But maybe kids that are slightly older and have a bit of knowledge of deck builder, or you're willing to teach them, because I do find there is a bit of a set of time and there is a bit of a, you know, talk through. It's not hard, but you do need to explain everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, it's fine. That's like our go-to answer. It's fine. Yeah. I don't have anything against in particular. It's just I've played better ones that have come so much earlier than it. And unless you like the license, there's not really much else. And for me, I'd rather go to a license I'm familiar with, that I like, and does something more different.
Okay. So I think that if you like a nice deck builder, which when I say nice, I mean like you're not willing to like go out and like attack people, but if you want something nice and that's fairly light, but you enjoy deck builders, you'll probably like this. If you want something that has a little bit more, you may want to find a deck builder that has other elements that are thrown into the mix. I don't know if you agree or not, but
I'm gonna have to say that I would recommend other ones. I may not name them because that might be for another time and another topic, but if you like Vikings Gone Wild and you like the theme Vikings, I would recommend this for that. But if you're looking for something new, you're gonna have to look elsewhere.
All right, so there you go. So I think we're kind of in the like, okay. Like, it's fine, but it's not terrible by any means. But I think that, you know, it could be better. Now, I know with the expansions coming out, I think there's 2 out now, and there's a 3rd coming. So it changes the different types, like new cooperative, and it throws some other elements in there. So maybe that changes it. So until I play the expansions, I'm basing it just on the base game. And for me, I just felt like it was lacking a little bit of that edge.
Exactly. Just a little oomph,
I know. Oomph.
Like that kind of oomph.
Viking oomph. I think that sums it up. So I think that's our review for Vikings Gone Wild, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.